Have you ever felt like you're spinning a dozen plates at once? Like trying to juggle a million things, all while feeling like the ground is shifting beneath you? Yeah, I think we've all been there. Today, we are diving deep into that feeling, exploring why we do it and how we can stop.
Absolutely. It's like this constant battle to make everything and everyone around us fit into this perfect little box, right?
Ah,
That's the human experience in a nutshell
it
again.
really is. And lucky for us, we've got Mel Robbins and her Let Them theory to help us unpack all of this. We are going to be taking a deep dive into a summary of her book to see if she can give us some answers.
Okay, so what's the mission for today's deep dive then? What are we hoping to learn?
Well, I'm hoping that together we can pull out the juiciest, the most impactful bits of wisdom from this book, right? The kind of stuff that you, our amazing listeners out there, can actually take and apply to your own lives.
Sound like a plan?
Awesome. So, to set the scene a little, the core idea here is that this struggle for control, this need to manage every little thing, it might be the source of a lot of our stress.
Oh, interesting. So instead of, trying to bend the world to our will, maybe we should try something different.
Exactly. Because as the summary points out, the need to control everything and everyone around us, whether it's our partner, our boss, even our kids sometimes, is a recipe for, well, basically burning ourselves out.
Okay, so where does this need for control even come from?
Well, that's a great question. The summary suggests that it all stems from, drum roll please, insecurity and fear. You know, those super fun human
All
emotions.
those. Yeah, we all have them.
Yep. And apparently, Robbins dives deep into where those feelings come from and how they fuel our need to control everything.
It makes sense when you think about it, right? We try to control things because we are afraid of what might happen if we don't.
Yeah. It's totally like that time I tried to help my grandma organize her photo albums. I came in with this super efficient system, dates, labels, you name it. I mean, I thought I was being so
I
helpful.
can see you all organized and everything.
Oh, yeah, I was on a mission. But my grandma, she had her own way of doing things, right? She organized her photos based on the stories behind them, who was in the picture, all those sentimental connections. You know, it totally backfired because my need to impose order actually took away from her joy.
Oh, wow. So the lesson there is sometimes letting go is the best way to go.
Totally. It's like the more I tried to control the situation, the more stressful it became for both of us. And that's a big part of what this book is about, right? Letting go of that need to control and realizing that sometimes a little chaos is okay.
I like that. Embracing the chaos a little.
Exactly. And the book doesn't just stop at this general idea of letting go. It gets pretty specific, you know. The summary dives into the idea of boundaries, something we hear a lot about these days.
Oh, boundaries, such an important topic, but sometimes it feels a bit overused. You know what I mean? Like everyone's talking about setting boundaries, but
Yeah.
how do we actually do it?
Right. It's like we know we need them, but translating that into real life can be a little tricky. But that's where this book comes in. Because from what I hear, Robbins gives us really clear and practical advice on setting boundaries.
Ooh, real world examples, the kind of stuff we can actually use.
Yes, exactly. Real people, real situations, so we can all see how it's done.
It makes it so much more relatable and applicable.
Right, because it's one thing to read about boundaries in theory, it's another thing to see how it plays out in someone's messy, wonderful life.
Okay, so boundaries are important, but what's the science behind all of this letting go stuff?
Well, hold on to your hats because the summary of this book gets into that too.
Is that right? Tell me more.
Apparently, Robbins doesn't just talk about letting go from like a touchy-feely perspective. She brings in the big guns neuroscience and psychology to show us how our brains are wired for control and anxiety.
That is so interesting. So, like, our brains are basically programmed to freak out a little when we feel like we're not in control.
It seems that way. And according to the summary, all this trying to control things actually keeps our nervous system in overdrive.
Okay, so we're not just imagining it then. This is real science.
Exactly. And the book dives into all of that. It explains how letting go, and not just on an emotional level, but on a physiological level too, can actually calm our brains and bodies down.
Well, that's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And speaking of powerful, this next part is especially important for anyone who's, well, in a relationship.
Okay, here comes the relationship advice. Let's hear it.
Brace yourselves. The summary of the let them theory talks about this idea of let them being like the secret sauce for building trust and respect in any relationship.
Let them.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit, well, hands off.
Yeah, it's definitely a shift from what we're often told, that we need to constantly be checking in, offering advice, or, trying to fix things for the people we care about.
Oh, I see. So instead of trying to control them, We let them be.
Exactly. It's about letting go of the reins a little bit and trusting the other person to navigate their own lives.
But isn't that hard? I mean, sometimes you just want to step in and, help.
Oh, yeah. It can be super tough.
Uh,
I'm speaking from experience here. Remember my well-meaning neighbor and my tomato plants? Well, she was just trying to help, bless her heart.
oh, the tomato plants. What happened?
She decided they needed a little trim, and by trim I mean she practically chopped them down to the ground. My poor tomatoes. And my initial reaction, well, let's just say it wasn't very let them.
Oh, no. Poor tomato plants. But it's a good example, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes our need to control things, even with good intentions, can really backfire.
Absolutely. And that's why this let them philosophy is so important in relationships, because it's about respecting the other person's journey, even if they are making choices that we wouldn't make for them.
And letting go in this way probably frees up so much mental energy, too.
Oh, for sure. It's exhausting trying to control everything and everyone around us. And the same goes for our work lives.
Oh, tell me about it. I think we've all had those micromanaging bosses who suck the joy out of everything.
The worst. That feeling of constantly being watched and second guessed, it's like a creativity killer.
Totally. It
Yeah.
just makes you feel like you can't do anything right.
Exactly. And the book really dives into this. The summary highlights how the workplace can become so much more positive and productive when we empower our colleagues instead of controlling them.
Yeah, it's like a breath of fresh air when you have a boss who trusts you to do your job. It just makes you want to work harder.
Exactly. Imagine a Monday morning where you actually feel excited to go to work. That's the kind of environment this let them approach can create.
Okay, I'm sold.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything in this book about being, well, more ourselves?
Absolutely. Because all of this letting go stuff, it leads to something amazing authenticity. Letting go of that pressure to be perfect all the time.
Oh my goodness, yes. The pressure to be perfect is everywhere these days.
It's exhausting. Social media just makes it even worse. Everyone's trying to project this perfect image, and it's just not real.
It's so true. I think deep down, we all know that no one is perfect, but it's so easy to get caught up in that comparison game.
Totally. But the book encourages us to just let go of all of that, to embrace our imperfections, our quirks, all the things that make us unique.
And that probably takes a lot of courage, right? To
Yeah.
be vulnerable and show our true selves to the world.
Yeah, it does. But the summary suggests that when we do, it not only frees us from that pressure to be perfect, but it also allows us to connect with others on a much deeper level.
Because when we are authentic, we give other people permission to be authentic too.
Exactly. It's like a chain reaction of self-acceptance. And all that energy we were using to maintain that perfect facade, well, it can be directed towards something much more fulfilling, like pursuing our dreams.
So it's about figuring out what truly matters to us and then going after it with everything we've got.
Yes. The summary highlights how the book teaches us to filter out all those distractions and really focus on what we want to achieve. It's about setting clear goals and then aligning our daily habits with those goals.
It's about making choices that support our long-term vision, even when they are hard choices.
Exactly. And when we let go of all those things we can't control, all those external pressures, it gives us so much more clarity and focus to pursue what truly matters to us.
And all of this leads to something really important, the ability to be resilient.
Right. Because let's face it, life is full of curveballs. Things happen, stuff goes wrong, and if we're constantly trying to control everything, those curveballs are going to hit us even harder.
Like we were bracing ourselves for impact instead of learning how to roll with the punches.
Yes. And the let them theory, as the summary explains, teaches us to be more adaptable, to bounce back from those inevitable challenges. It helps us develop a sense of inner strength that allows us to weather the storms of life.
It sounds like this book really emphasizes that letting go is not about giving up. It's about becoming more powerful in a different way.
Yes. It's about focusing on what we can control, our own thoughts, actions, and reactions. And when we do that, it gives us a sense of freedom and empowerment that we never knew we had.
So it's about trading this illusion of external control for a deeper sense of inner peace and resilience.
Exactly. So if we had to sum it all up, the let them theory, at least based on the summary we've discussed today, seems to be a guide for anyone who feels like they're constantly battling the world around them.
Anyone who feels like they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders.
Totally. And it encourages us to let go of that weight, to trust in ourselves, and to embrace the beautiful messiness of life.
And it's a reminder that real strength comes from within.
So, for you, our dear listeners, we hope this deep dive into the let them theory has given you some food for thought.
And maybe even inspired you to try letting go in some area of your life, to experiment with a little less control and a little more trust.
Maybe it's a relationship that feels strained, a work situation that's causing you stress, or even just that inner critic that's always telling you you're not good enough.
Because when we release that grip, when we allow ourselves and those around us to just be, something amazing happens.
We free ourselves to experience life in a whole new way, a way that's full of possibilities, joy, and maybe even a little bit of peace amidst the chaos.
So here's a little something to ponder. What's one small thing you can let go of today? Something you've been holding on to way too tightly. Just imagine how different your life might feel if you just loosen your grip a little.
And who knows? Maybe you'll be surprised by what happens when you finally let go.